Hey Reza, how are you?
Good, Shay. How are you doing?
I am good. I am good and excited to do I guess it's a teaser for the book.
Yeah, yeah. We've been talking about doing this teaser, but we hadn't quite come up with what we wanted this book to be.
Yeah.
So we kept waiting, and now we feel like we're ready to talk about it. So Shay, tell our listeners, tell our fans more about this.
Yes, yes. So one of the things, and I don't know if listeners have experienced this as much as we seem to be experiencing it over the last few years or months of diving into this topic about cities, and it's that current books are starting to repeat the same things, quoting the same sections of some of the more popular books on the topic of cities, referencing the same cities over and over again in their assessment of what's going on, what needs to change in cities. And so we thought, you know what? Yes, we like to write a book about cities, but then you shared a quote that you found on one of your trips around the city. And I think it's a good time for you to share that.
Yeah, so I had gone for an exhibit at the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas campus, and there was an exhibit about writers that were part Penn organization. And Toni Morrison, famous writer, she had this quote, and it said, "If you find a book you really want to read, but it hasn't been written, then you must write it." And when I saw that, I took a picture and I sent it to you because I was like, we haven't read the book that is about cities that we want to read, and so
Yep.
we write it. So
Yeah.
that got me really excited. And so we just said, we got to write a different book. So what's that book going to be,
What's
Shay?
it gonna be? Yes. So it's a book about cities, but it will have stories, some poetry, which very few books about cities. I personally have not read one, but I do want to, and that's why we're writing it. A bunch of imagery around cities. It'll be some of the pictures we've taken in our trips across cities across the world. And we happen to have some friends who also are into photography, and they have some stunning imagery from the cities they live in. So that'll be in the book as well. And then there's a sort of we're wrapping this idea that we always talk about on the podcast, systems thinking, laws, and we're infusing those into this book we're writing. And the idea being to answer the question or questions about what do people want from their cities and how can cities essentially deliver what people want, the residents of the cities. How can cities deliver those things in a sustainable way,
Yeah.
all towards the sustainable cities for thriving communities theme that we've mentioned a ton on the show.
Yeah. And, one thing that was another inspiration, Shay, a couple weeks ago, I was telling you about, I'm going for this movie called Grand Theft Hamlet. If
Yeah.
I'm a big Shakespeare fan, as my friend Carolyn says, that I'm a Shakespeare weirdo. But that aside, Grand Theft Hamlet is a documentary about these two actors that decided that they wanted to perform the play Hamlet inside the multiplayer Grand Theft Auto game. And so this is incredibly creative. Hamlet is the most performed play of Shakespeare, but they're taking it and they're putting it inside a multiplayer game. Again, they don't have much control. You can see in the movie, like every time they try to get started, that someone would come and kill them. And they would audition people inside the game to get
Wow.
them and then find locations and make sure that they could, do the whole thing. And so with that very interesting constraint, they did the Hamlet play inside the game, and it was incredibly creative. It was so different. It raised new insights. It made you think about Hamlet in a completely different way. And I thought, well, that's what we want with this book, which is we want it to be different. It's not a typical nonfiction book. And you challenged me. You said, Reza, you're a poet. You should have poetry in this book. And I was like, oh my God, I was very, I felt very anxious about it. I was like, can I do that? And I love the challenge. I love that you challenged me to do that. And I hope to write some poetry, in an accessible way that could highlight and get you to pause and reflect on, what we're trying to learn and what we want out of our cities.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought up the topic of pause. Another thing we as we're talking about the book that we really want to do is that we want you to, as you read, experience a book in a way like you haven't before. And when you open the book and say the first thing you read is a poem about a city, followed by a story about the past, the present, and the strategic ideas around the laws for a city. And then the next two chapters are just imagery. And then a couple poems before you get to the next story and the law. That will, at every point, be, maybe the right word isn't dissonance, but it's what I pops into mind for me. There will be enough dissonance for you that you pause and consider what you just experienced,
Mm-hmm.
because it is a book, but is it? Because I've just been given a gift of a poem that makes me think about my city in a different way, for example. So that, like, the pondering and the thoughtfulness that we hope happens as you read the book should be a different experience, because books have become formulaic,
Yeah.
is the truth. We're both soccer fans, and one of the things we always talk about with soccer is that it's, the fundamentals are the same for the most part, but it's that spark of creativity when a player does something different in a game that leads to an outcome that we are all hoping for, a goal in the case, or a defensive tackle in the case. But it's just, you do it non-formulaic, that brings delight to the people that are experiencing it. And we want that to be the case when you read our book, because it is not formulaic at all.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so excited. And Shay, that is such a, that inspires me so much that, you and I are going to try to, make this book that's going to be different and do it together. But it's not just that, Shay. We also want, like, the writing of the book, we want to involve our community, our fans in it too. So talk a little bit about that as well.
Yes, yes. So what we've already done, we have a few parts of the book already written. We have the structure and the outline of the book already sort of formed. And so we've found a few of our listeners, some of our, I'll say our top listeners, even though they're all our listeners we love, but the ones who've been with us from the jump and who have deep ideas that have formed from them listening to the episodes of our podcast and then sharing their own knowledge and ideas with us, which has improved the shows. And they've given us some really good feedback already about those sections of the book that in some cases have made us pause in our writing as well. I'm like, one of the two quick examples come to mind. The question about what do people want from their cities came from feedback, super thoughtful feedback from one of our listeners, and Amani, and another one of our listeners, Tyson. He goes, "What about the money aspect of all this? We can be idealistic all we want, but at the end of the day, there's how do we finance and fund the future of the city we want?" And that's also challenged us to do things in a bit more depth and just be a lot more exploratory in what we're writing. So I worried initially about opening up the kimono, as they say, to early contributors, but I'm so glad we did. You encouraged us to do that, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure, but I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, it's kind of part of my day job, which is a product manager. I ship as early as possible. The moment of truth is when a user starts using the product and
Yep.
you start getting feedback from it. And so the more we learn earlier,
Yeah.
the better the product is going to be at the end. And this is really, it's not just, that we want a better product. We also want to involve, our biggest fans because they've been part of our journey
Yeah.
along the way. And this is how we roll. We are not experts, as we always say.
Yeah.
We lead with curiosity, and even as we write the book, we want to lead with curiosity, and we want to
Yeah.
learn along the way, so that we come out with a beautiful book that our fans would want to read.
Would want to read. So interestingly, on the topic of we're not experts, a friend who was I was talking to on Friday night. Yeah, it was Friday night before we're recording this. And he goes, "You do realize you guys have become experts." I was like, "What?" He goes, "You're just experts who maintain your curiosity because you know you don't know everything, but that you now share deep expertise in a very approachable way, but you become experts." It was like, "You're not an urban planner, obviously not, but you've now gone and done research, and in the assessment of expertise, you guys are now way higher than the average citizen,
Yeah, yeah,
but you maintain your curiosity." And that really touched me when he said that. And that's what we want to continue to bring into the podcast, and more specifically to what we're talking about now, the book we're writing as well.
yeah. I want to encourage listeners that want to be the part of this journey with us to subscribe to our newsletter.
Yep.
You can find that newsletter on futureforward.fm. If you're part of our newsletter, we'll be, sharing some early chapters, chances for you to give feedback. If you have any ideas, want to be, part of this, you can always email us at hello@futureforward.fm. We're just so excited about doing this. So, and we'd love for you to be, part of our process, part of our journey doing.
So yes, everything Reza just said. And on a final note, I'll say thank you to our listeners.
Yes.
You continue to encourage us to put our best into this, because that's what it is. And we have so much fun. And it's just great we're thankful that you're having fun with us along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone. Stay tuned, and you'll be hearing more about the Future Forward book soon.